Hello, we are going to piece the double Maltese. That rhymes. So today we're going to do paper piecing, but a little differently. So this is one of 4 templates that you will have in your pattern. So what I did, off of a different template, but it's the same thing, I cut out the individual pieces, okay? Now these happen to have the seam allowances, and this one doesn't, but it doesn't matter because we're going to be cutting our fabric quite a bit bigger than these anyway. So I'll be right back. Okay, so for the first larger piece, I'm going to start with an approximately 6 by 6 inch square. It could be a little bigger. And I'm going to very rough cut around the angled edges here. What I'm going to make sure I do is, this is the outside corner of the block. So I'm going to put it on a straight edge so that it doesn't end up being on the bias. So I'm going to do that 4 times with this piece. And here we have all of our rough cut pieces ready to paper piece. Okay, so I've got my templates and my fabric cut out, oversized, and we are going to start paper piecing. So the first thing I want to do is start with A and B. So 1 and 2, the center is number 1. And so I'm going to start with right side up. Right sides together. Okay. Now these are way oversized, but they're going to be cut down. So that's okay. So flip it over. And then you're just going to go ahead and start. I'm going to just start from the center. I don't think it really matters, but be sure your machine is set at a very short stitch so that the paper will be easy to remove when you're done. So we're going to open this up, and I press, but I also like to press with this thing because it really works. And now I'm going to do all 4 of those, and then once I'm done with all 4 of them, I'm going to go ahead and trim. Oops. Okay, so here's a mistake. I put the wrong side. I should have put the short side, and I put the long side. Okay, it needs to be flipped. So I'm going to do that and be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I've restitched it, and what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to put the rest of these together the way they're supposed to be. So like that, you know, right sides together like you would normally do. And this way I won't get it boogered up again. So anyway, 2 and 3. So I'm going to finish sewing up these, and I'll be back. So a quick reminder, you're just going to sew, put your right sides together pieces. You're going to find the line. You're going to be able to see through it. Put it approximately 1/4 inch over that line. Flip it over and sew along your straight line. Whoops, I got caught in my hands. So sometimes you have to, and sometimes you could just put a pin in it. Just make sure you don't put it in the wrong direction so you don't run over the pin like I did earlier. So I'm just going to finish this last one. And I actually chain pieced these. I did all 3 of them at the same time. So I'll just cut them apart. And rid of the pin. open it up and press with my little roller derby thing. And now we're going to go ahead and trim. I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to trim. We're going to fold this back and trim here 1/4 of an inch off. And possibly this edge. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and trim these 2 edges to 1/4 inch. This one is the most important, that you get 1/4 inch. This one is less important because we're going to sew another piece over that. So yeah, so earlier when I was testing this block, I sewed right through a pin, and here it is, right here. Sewed right through the pin. So don't do that. I'm going to trim these to 1/4 inch beyond, and I'll be back. Okay, so here's how we're going to piece these. I'm going to do it like a 4-patch. All right. So I'm going to put 2 of them together like this. Now it looks to me like these seams right here will nest. So I'm not sure if we want them to nest. Doesn't really look like we want them to nest. Looks like they want to nest, but I don't think we want them to. I think we want them to be right on top of each other, because otherwise if they nest, we're going to end up, I don't think it's going to be right. So let's just put these exactly corner to corner, okay, and line up the edges. Be more concerned about lining up the edges and making sure those are fitting together than the actual where the paper is going to be, because I want to do an exact 1/4 inch seam. So this lines up this way, and this looks like it lines up exactly this way. So I'm just going to go over, slide it over so that it stays where it's at. Put my foot down, and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam from the edge. That may not be exactly on this line either, because if you notice, there's a little bit of cut beyond this dotted line. So if that's the case, then just do it that way, because you want to make sure that if it comes out a little bit big, it's nice to be able to trim it down. My test piece wasn't exactly 9.5 inches. It was like 9.5 in one direction and 9 3/8 in the other direction, which makes me a little crazy. But anyway, so I decided that this one, the actual real block, I was going to sew it just a thread or 2 larger so that I could make sure that it comes out the right measurement. So here we are. It's not going exactly along this line, but that's okay. I think it's going to work out okay. So I'm going to go all the way to the edge and cut my thread, and then we'll open it up and see that we have, looks like it's going to be okay. I mean, the point isn't exactly matching, but I mean, whatever, you know. So we have this seam allowance here, which is what we want, and it's nice and straight here, nice and straight here, nice and straight here. So we're going to do the other 2 like that, and then put top to bottom together, and the block will be done. You know, so we'll have seams that do actually nest not trim it, fold it, excuse me, so that they do nest. And then we'll flip it over like that. Okay. Line up the fabric again. The fabric now, not so much the paper, but the fabric. I like to keep the paper on though, just so that it'll kind of hold everything steady. Now, I flipped it over and it doesn't look like it wants to line up this way, so I'm just going to manipulate it a little. Just going to turn it. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put a pin so that it'll stay even through all that paper. Put a pin through all that paper. And we'll try to put a pin through all that paper. Let's have to lift it up. And it might be better to do it, you know, from like back to front. Just see where it's lining up. You know, try to keep your center to where it's nesting. Get this lined up good. Okay, so I know that's lined up okay. So just let the paper back. Put a pin in it. Okay. Lots of layers here. All right, so it's pretty good, both sides. You know, this one I'm a little bit wonkied out about. I think I'm gonna sew it from this side. And I like to sew it to where when it's nesting, the opposite seam, you know, the seam is actually facing away from me rather than down like this. So this is how I like to do it. Now, I'm gonna just go 1/4 inch from the edge, just like normal sewing. I'll move the pins as I come along to them. Okay, we're getting to this big thick seam here. So I'm gonna use my stiletto to just force it to stay where I want it to. And then just slowly go over, push through so it doesn't get stuck. And then keep going. Holding it in place. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of push that over to where it's lining up. I think it'll be all right. It'll be good enough. Good enough. We can't always achieve absolute perfection, at least I don't. So I used to waste a lot of time trying to achieve absolute perfection, and I probably would have made at least twice as many more quilts if I hadn't tried to do that. Okay, well, not too bad. So what I'm going to do is we'll go measure, just to make sure it is really 9.5, and trim down if I need to, but I think it came out pretty good. So there's the Maltese, whatever that is, double Maltese. Yeah. Oh, this looks like it folded in a little bit. So yeah, that's gonna mess with my measurements a little bit. I'm not gonna worry about it. I think it'll probably shake itself out once I take the paper off. I can work with that. Okay, see you next month.